What is up? What is up, everybody? Happy almost 1 o'clock in the morning here in Vegas, for almost 4 a.m. on the East Coast. But we got to talk boxing while it's still hot. Wifey has the Shake Shack. Say what's up, everybody. Oh, you know what? Quickly, just real quick, your thoughts on Canelo tonight?
He's an expert.
An expert.
Yeah.
Can you say it in español?
Es un experto. Es un profesional.
There you go. Love you, babe.
1 in the morning. Sean's gonna kill the one.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you for bringing down the Shake Shack. You know what I'm saying? What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Saludos, Jesus M. So, man, I thoroughly enjoyed Canelo tonight because, first of all, great job by Canelo. Munguia, good fight by Munguia. Munguia was really throwing heat at Canelo in the first 3 rounds tonight. And in that third round, in the last 10 seconds, he closed strong. And he threw a combination where, much like his combinations most of the night, they were partially landing, but Canelo was catching beautifully, rolling, catching, not taking the full brunt of the shot, unlike Munguia, who just about every time Canelo hit him clean and hit him with a good shot, it was, on the button, not snapping his head around. But Munguia did snap Canelo's head up by punctuating that combination punching with a right hand. And then Canelo in the next round, when he dropped him with that right uppercut, that was like a, sit your ass down, boy. Sit down, calm down. You're throwing heat, and I got to calm this down a little bit. And he threw that right uppercut. And after that, Canelo was in full control of the fight. And before Canelo landed that right uppercut, he didn't look, his composure and poise was really excellent. There was a sense ringside that, okay, Munguia's doing well. If you're really being beneficial to Munguia, he might even be up 3 rounds to nothing. I had Munguia up 2 rounds to 1 after the third round. But there was this sense that Canelo was fine with whatever was coming his way. It wasn't bothering him. And you saw him setting Munguia up, almost letting Munguia get comfortable and think that it's okay to stay in the wheelhouse, in the pocket with Canelo and fire those 4, 5, 6 punch combinations. It was probably really smart of Canelo to even kind of lose the first 2 rounds. I gave him the second round, but I had Munguia winning 1 and 3. And that was smart because when a guy feels comfortable, we saw Ryan do this against Devin 2 weeks ago. When you feel like you can absorb what the other guy is throwing, sometimes you let him get off and even land some shots. You don't give him free shots on the chin, but you let him get off and land a little something so he gets comfortable. And he isn't on his back foot. He's not and he made Munguia feel comfortable. And then that right uppercut came, and Munguia knew he had been hit by something he'd never been hit with before. Credit to Munguia. He took the shots really well after that knockdown. But Canelo was in control, and then in around 9 and 10, Canelo began to coast, and Munguia made those rounds. And 8. 8 was competitive. I still had Canelo winning just most of these rounds because the head snapping, knock the sweat off the head type of blows was Canelo. So I do think in some of those later rounds, Munguia fought really well and really competitive and got some good combinations and definitely got some good work done. But it was always inevitable that Canelo would slide the shot, roll the shot. He got hit with a big left hook in an exchange in round 10 or 11, showed that granite chin. That one caught him clean. But for the most part, he'd roll a lot of the steam off of it, like he did Golovkin a lot of times. And then it was just inevitable that he'd get off with that insane punch placement. Canelo's accuracy and punch placement are just insane, man. The way he places his bombs is beautiful. The pull counters were beautiful. There was a number of times tonight watching the fight at T-Mobile that I just went ooh and ah and made spontaneous noises because of the beautiful things he was doing in that boxing ring. So the pull counters, and then that jab was subtle. Canelo shows so many different tools with the pull counters and the head movement and the catch and shoot and that slicing left hook that covers so much ground. Shout out to my man Sean Porter, who explained why Ryan Garcia's left hook is such an issue. And he says because great left hooks, there's a blind spot in the midpoint of the trajectory. And man, Canelo creates a blind spot with the way he slices with his left hook. And it covers more ground than most left hooks do. He could throw it from kind of mid-long range and nail you with it. You don't see it coming. That left hook has a blind spot, you know, mid-trajectory. And then, of course, the uppercut that dropped him. And he was throwing right hands over the top that were bombs that were knocking Munguia's head around. But very subtly, one of the things that let him gain control of this fight was his jab. And he landed it at, whenever he let it go, he landed it. He wasn't throwing 20, 30, 40 jabs around. But whenever he let it go, he landed it. And it was a very subtle adjustment that allowed him to just be in complete control after that knockdown. So yeah, credit to Munguia. Let's quickly, let me say what's up to some people. Yeah, facts, it was action-packed, says Deloitte Lewis. Canelo fought like Floyd when he beat him. Yeah, in terms of that experience and poise and not trying to keep up with the younger man's pace, but, you know, picking his shots and figuring him out. Jesus M said, am I hungry? I am hungry. Sean, it was a fixed bout. No, it wasn't, Jesus M. Munguia did what he could. Look, I said on the live, what was it, yesterday after the weigh-in, that there were some ingredients of an upset. Maybe Oscar got in Canelo's head, maybe not. Maybe Canelo is a little bit in denial about how hungry he is. You could tell yourself you're hungry and say you're hungry, but are you as hungry as before the 500 million you've probably accumulated in your career and all the titles and being 33 and some of the injuries and wars? He hasn't been in that many wars, but along the way. But ultimately, I said he's just a better fighter than Jaime Munguia. And so, no fixed fight whatsoever. He's just a better fighter. How was the crowd? I will show you in a moment, Junior Delgado. It was pretty good. It was pretty fucking good. I knew someone would want to see that. You know what? Why not? I'll show you now. I'll show you this now. How was the crowd? I always like to take a couple of, you know, inside the arena videos for you guys. So you could kind of feel the vibes there tonight. And I'll go ahead and do that real quick. This was during Canelo's ring walk. It's a celebration of Mexico and Mexican boxing. Yeah, the swag of a great fighter coming out, you know. And while we're at it, you know, while we're here, here was a little action live in the arena. You guys appreciate that. Let me get that out the way. Look how calm and composed Canelo was. That jab that I mentioned earlier, very, you know, subtle adjustment, maybe overlooked in the midst of all the power shots. But look at that jab that I talked about earlier. Look at that jab again. That was that low key helped him greatly as the fight went on. Defense, that hook to the body got in, but Canelo kind of gave him the nah, you ain't doing it. So yeah, some good action. And then I think I got a little video after the knockdown. This was after the knockdown. God damn it. Forget it. That pull, he was waiting on that pull counter uppercut. And that was the same round he dropped him with that move. Boom, step back, pull counter. His pull counters are some of my favorite pull counters I've ever seen. So, gave you guys a little look into the arena. I know, I believe you guys appreciate that. So let's recap some stuff. First first, let's recap exactly what my official prediction was. Hold on. Should have done this before I went live, but it's late. Here we go. All right. That's what YouTube Studio looks like. Okay, let's just venture. What was my pick on the Great Porter Way podcast this week? Let's just see how I did, chat.
Overhand right?
Yeah, overhand right.
Over the top.
I think Munguia's path to victory is...
Shout out Amanda. Much love to Amanda and Hunter. Love you guys, man. You guys are awesome. Wish I could have seen you guys, but I'm happy you guys were at the fight and enjoyed it as always.
Pretty obvious. No, I got Canelo. But I'm not more humble about these picks right now after what Ryan did.
Yeah, I feel you.
Well, this is before the PED test happened, so if it gets overturned, then technically I wasn't totally wrong about the Ryan fight. But anyways.
Damn.
But no, Munguia's path to victory is if he can surprise Canelo with his ability to absorb his shots, then it's on. Because then that pace could give Canelo hell. Because Canelo, his last fight with Charlo threw like 30 punches around. He's not going to be able to fight at that pace. Now, like you said, Munguia doesn't get out of the way of shots a whole lot. And much lesser fighters than Canelo have hit him on the button, clean, consistently. So I do think he's going to try and use his length and keep Canelo at the end a little bit, be intelligent in the fight. But ultimately, he's a combination puncher. And Canelo's going to find openings in that. I think Canelo wins a unanimous decision, 116-111. I think he drops Munguia at some point, but this is a big, strong, fresh kid, and I think he gets the distance, 116-111 Canelo. I'm
not crazy about...
Not bad, right? Not bad. See, everything is back to normal. See, everything back to normal. I'm usually not that off like we were 2 weeks in Brooklyn, but there we go. That's better, right? Anyways, let's see. Where should we start here? Well, let's hear. Let's see. Oh, Canelo mentioned why he was able to land the uppercut. He was honest. He said, that Munguia was slow. So let's hear.
I was wondering, what do you see in him? Is there anything that you've seen any slippage? Do you see where he can get better? Just give me your impressions on the way he's fighting right now.
Reynoso said that he's still in his prime. And then someone, I think, asked Canelo about the uppercut, and he was candid and said, Munguia was kind of slow.
¿Qué viste del partido de Munguia que quiso ser tan exitoso durante la pelea? ¿Cómo lo figuraste?
No, pues a ver. He's strong, he's smart, but he's a little slow, so I can do things fast and throw my punch and my combinations.
I don't know if it's too low. He said he's strong and smart, but he's slow, and I'm fast. So.
Everywhere, and then I think that uppercut. But you need to work to get that kind of combinations.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I just wanna thank Jaime because
Shout it out, Al Heyman. And then I think at the end he mentioned it. I knew he with the counter punch, and me and Sean touched on that.
Predictions, as y'all know, but I think this.
I want to go 12 rounds. No, you know why I like your prediction better though? Because if I'm talking about the pace, and Canelo might be thinking that too. I don't want to go 12 rounds.
Yeah.
Let me get him out of there in 8.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah.
He tried to, but it was a little bit of that Manny Pacquiao effect, man. And yeah.
But if he can't,
where Pacquiao got into his 30s and he still dropped guys, he still beat that ass, but he couldn't get him out of there because he was into his 30s and he couldn't shift to that next gear to get them out of there. And that's where Canelo reminds me a lot of like Pacquiao at 33 in many ways.
then he wasted so much. And that's just, but that's what I thought Charlo was going to do. I thought Charlo was going to get the pace. Charlo was going to wear on him, throw them big shots.
About the 30 punches around versus Charlo. Don't forget that Charlo was moving.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a huge reason.
And you got somebody that's not going to move, you know what I mean? So this is easily going to be a 40 to 50 punch output simply because you got somebody that's right in front of you, you know? So I don't think Jaime got the power. to stop.
Not a one-punch
Canelo,
power guy.
no.
He's got to put them together. And if
Yeah.
you got to put them together, Canelo can punch in between your shots.
There you go. Yeah. You know this game. Listen, we got a media blitz.
Thank you, Sean. I love Sean. Shout out to my man Sean Porter. So yeah, I think my man Ron Goodall back home at Fight Hype, he asked Canelo this. People were laughing at me at the post fight and go, "Are you gonna ask Canelo about Benavidez again?" And I'm like, nah. That's played out for me now. I've asked him about Benavidez like 15 times over the course of a couple years, and I don't know. I'm kind of over it. He's tired. He doesn't stop for me when I try to ask. He knew I would probably ask about David Benavidez again. Go enjoy the win tonight, champ. You'll either fight Benavidez or you won't, but let's hear what he said about it one more time.
Respectful instead of like talking trash. Would that help a little bit in making the fight? Instead of like saying like buy something
200 million.
200 million still? It's still 200 million? No,
Yeah, he's sticking to his 200 million, and then he said this too. We'll do what we want.
We both did a really good fight, and I feel great. I feel those everybody in my team. I feel very proud of them because this no matter.
Where's the part where someone asked? Here we go.
Saúl, aquí Gonzalo de ser en español. Felicidades. Como la pregunta obligatoria que dice ya en los Hills es.
Edgar Cota asked me, Sean, I'm late, but do you think Benavidez has a chance? I'll get right to that right now. One moment.
Yo que si tú aprendes algo de alguien y dijiste que sí, te dijiste que después de la pelea me ibas a responder esa pregunta. Quisiera saber qué enseñanza te dejó Jaime.
Pues la verdad es que es difícil decirte en este momento, tengo que procesar todo y ver, pero creo que fue un peleador muy valiente que vino a entregar todo, siempre aprendo de eso y siempre se me queda lo bueno, hay que seguir aprendiendo cada día, así que...
Por último, para seguir en World Sports, if I can ask you this question in English, now after this victory, are we going to see you fight sometime soon?
We'll see. I'm gonna rest and go with my team. And like I say, everybody asking for everything, but and I always did. I always fight with everybody. You asking, so. But right now I'm in the position I can ask him to. So I'm in the position I can ask him to, and I can do whatever I want, and we'll see what happens next.
Yeah, only in boxing does that logic work with its great athletes. In every other sport, Canelo's logic, which was passed down to him by Floyd Mayweather, which was passed down by, I don't even want to say Oscar, man, because Oscar fought all comers from 130 to 160, but Sugar Ray Leonard, did it. Sugar Ray Leonard did it, and Floyd did it, and Canelo does it, and they're not alone. There's been other guys who have done it, but that logic really only holds up in our sport. And our sport is, of course, unique and different than the other team sports, but LeBron James just got eliminated by Nikola Jokic a couple nights, right? Tom Brady, before he retired at 44, 45, had to play Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. The logic that we use in boxing with our great ones, it would be like if LeBron a week ago said, what do I have to play Nikola Jokic in the NBA play? I'm the face of basketball. Who is he? He's a nobody. I'm the one who generates all the revenue. I'm the face of basketball. I can pick, no, I'm not playing the Nuggets in the first round. I'm playing someone else, the Rockets. And then Patrick Mahomes Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady, I'm the face of football. What do I got to play Patrick Mahomes for? Or Patrick Mahomes, I'm the face of football. What do I got to play Brock Purdy in the Super Bowl for? He's in the NFC. I'm in the AFC. And I don't, I'm the face of football. I don't have to do that. Only in this sport does that shit hold any kind of logic with people. And yeah, I get where Canelo's coming from, and you guys know I have a great amount of respect for Canelo and really love watching him fight. I loved watching him fight tonight. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But yeah, if you want to remain El Rey de Boxeo, the king of boxing, then you got to continue to fight the guys that are ranked atop, that the public needs to forget what the public's, just the top dogs, the young dogs who want your spot. You got to deny them and say no. You got to be, if you want to hold on to your position and respect and credibility as the best fighter in the world or the best super middleweight in the world. And that's why ultimately, like, I do think that fight is going to happen because it's a huge money fight. But really, I just think that's how Canelo's wired. I don't think he's wired to keep avoiding the Benavidez fight. If he does, then he does, and it'll be a duck. He'll still make the Hall of Fame first ballot, still be a top 5 fighter from Mexico that ever lived. But he has a chance to be the greatest fighter from Mexico if he just beats David Benavidez. If he could, this is the last real meaningful fight out there for him. And he said to me the other day in the interview, well, you'll just come up with someone else. And I told him, well, isn't that the expectations of a great champion? I said that very respectfully and from the heart. Like, I hear what you're saying, Canelo. Taking punches in the face fucking sucks against the biggest, youngest, freshest, hungriest guys. But you're a great champion, and that's the expectations that you have as the face of boxing. So I think the fight's going to happen because you guys said I won't fight Lara, and I fought Lara. You guys say I don't fight with Golovkin, and I fight Golovkin. Okay, well, we're saying you may not fight with Benavidez. My hunch tells me you're going to fight Benavidez because you're a true champion, and that's how you're wired. If you don't, you don't. That's part of why I didn't ask him. I was like, yeah, if you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. But let's hear what Jim Lamp, speaking of greatest Mexican of all time and all that, let's listen to someone who talks way better than me about everything. Let's listen to Jim Lampley for a second. Who do I think is the greatest Mexican fighter of all time? Me personally, you know, I just have this affinity for Salvador Sanchez. You know, I just have, but I think objectively that Julio Cesar Chavez is a little overrated. He's obviously in the argument for greatest Mexican fighter of all time, but I think the guys I grew up with, maybe I'm biased because I love them so much, but those two fellas behind me, Barrera and Morales and Marquez. Look, Marquez has a better win than Chavez ever scored in his career. He knocked out Manny Pacquiao. He almost decapitated him with a right hand. That's a bigger win. That's the biggest win in Mexican boxing history. Bigger than anything any other Mexican fighter's ever done. The greatest single win a Mexican fighter has ever accomplished is what Marquez did to Pacquiao. But so I feel like it's just so neck and neck between Chavez, Canelo, Sanchez, Barrera, Morales, and Marquez. I feel like there's like this much difference between each of them. They're all so great. But yeah, me personally, I'll go with Salvador Sanchez. But I feel like the guys I grew up with, Terrible, Barrera, and Marquez, were really just as great as Chavez. They just didn't have 100+ fights. But I don't know. That would probably anger people that actually saw Chavez in his prime and grew up with him, you know. Jim, I have a quick super chat from Ready to Rumble, a.k.a. Alan Maddox. Says, asking Canelo about Benavidez is like pointing a water hose at a cat. The cat and Ginger Duck both run. Ask Canelo about facing Beterbiev. Well, Beterbiev, thank you for the super chat, Alan Maddox, but Beterbiev just had to pull out of the fight with Bivol and injured his knee again, I believe. That fight's been postponed. Bivol's still going to fight. So, I don't, Beterbiev's got to handle Undisputed with Bivol next. And if Canelo knows he bit off more than he could chew at 75. He was able to finesse a title against Kovalev, who had been knocked out a couple times, but was still formidable, still a WBO world champion at 175. So Canelo joined El Terrible Morales as, the two true 4-division Mexican champs. I know Jorge Arce and Juan Manuel Marquez technically got titles in 4 divisions, but they had an interim here, an interim there. Morales and Canelo captured full world titles in all 4 divisions. So, the fight is Benavidez. And if Canelo is going to duck Benavidez, then he's going to fight Edgar Berlanga. And, hey, I would actually enjoy watching that because Edgar Berlanga is going to come forward and Canelo's going to piece him up, and it'll be fun to watch.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, from Canelo. Did you enjoy the fight? What did you think of Canelo's performance?
Well, I thought the first 4 or 5 rounds were thrilling because you got the impression in the first 4 or 5 rounds that Jaime Munguia had a game plan. He certainly had the courage.
This is also just an excuse for me to eat my burger and let Jim run my live. It's not enough that Jim blesses me with like 18 interviews this week. He also now has to run my live while I eat a burger. So thank you, Jim Lampley.
Had the devotion to the task that it might have taken to ultimately have a chance to win the fight. But as the fight went on, it became clear that he didn't really have the pop necessary to dent the greatest chin in the sport, Canelo Alvarez, and he didn't understand.
Real quick, Larry Liston. I don't know if it's directed to me, Larry Liston, because you've always been in my lives and been awesome. But Larry said, unless you laced up those boots and been in there, you will never have a clue, brother. I've laced up the boots and boxed and had 3 amateur fights. And actually, one guy who used to kick my ass in Barry's boxing gym here in Vegas, he lost by knockout on the undercard to Brandon Figueroa. My man Jesse Magdaleno, who fought a good fight. Got some really good work done on the inside, but Brandon Figueroa is just too big and too young and too fresh for him. Brandon Figueroa is a little bit like Margarito was back in the day. He's just so big and he's so durable.
The necessary devotion to body punching that might have given him a chance, and he got caught too many times by one of the sport's best counterpunchers. And Canelo's not just a counterpuncher, he's a power counterpuncher. So the excitement of the first few rounds evaporated as we got in the middle of the fight and then went onward, and the crowd ultimately realized that the Canelo Alvarez, who survived Gennady Golovkin twice, simply has too much wherewithal for young Jaime Munguia to have had a chance.
That leads into my next question. You called his rematch with Golovkin here when he won that great fight. What would you compare him now compared to that moment 5 or 6 years ago? Is he still everything he was that night, or has he lessened a little bit? How do you see him, Jim?
I don't think he's diminished at all. I think he's still Canelo Alvarez. And I think that, we can talk about his counterpunching skill. We can talk about his strength and punching power. But at the end of the day, the real basis of his greatness is his punch resistance. You can't hurt him. You can't knock him.
Amanda, I love you and Hunter. I just thought I'd say that. I appreciate all the comments in there, Amanda.
Down. I called about a dozen years ago the one knockdown in his whole career, and that was a kind of a freaky moment when Jose Cotto caught him and knocked him back into the ropes, and the ropes held him up, and it was ruled a knockdown. He's never been on his back. He's never been on the canvas. And as long as you can't get him off his feet, he's in position to line you up and keep landing those thudding counter shots that ultimately are just too discouraging for people to have a chance. So, who can beat him? It's the obvious question.
Gleaming TV says Canelo's never been dropped. He was wrong about the Cotto brother fight. I knew he was wrong, but I was not about to correct Jim Lampley.
Can you make the David?
I actually have before. Like, I did correct him in an interview we did earlier this week, but I just wasn't doing it.
Benavidez fight, and can he, at his age, take David Benavidez's punch? I think Benavidez, if he gets the fight, will be the largest puncher ever to have been in the ring with him. I think he's a bigger puncher than Golovkin.
Of course he is. He's a natural light heavyweight. Golovkin, pound for pound, is a greater puncher than David Benavidez, but we're not talking pound for pound. We're just talking period. And David is, a natural 75 fighting sometimes at 68. And he's super fast and young. Yeah, he does hit. I totally agree with Jim.
And that's saying a lot. So I think that at the end of the day, if Canelo wants to put one more meaningful crowning achievement on his career, to put his accomplishments so far up that you certainly have to consider calling him the greatest Mexican fighter ever. And I don't know if there's a national identity anywhere in the sport that's more meaningful than that. Canelo can take on and beat a puncher like Benavidez after everything is done up to this point. I'm not a scholar of Mexican boxing, but I know a lot. And I would put him ahead of all the great Mexican fighters I call, including Julio Cesar Chavez, including Marco Antonio Barrera, including Eric Morales. There are others that I could put on the list. But, it's an amazing distinction if he gets to the point where we can say unequivocally, yes, he's earned it, and I think he wants that.
What about as of tonight? No Benavidez fight withstanding. Is he greater? I mean, you called these guys at the peak of their powers. Barrera, Morales, Marquez. Is he better than them? Or is he, you know?
He's as exciting as them now. There was a time when I did not think he was as, you know, sort of blood-racingly exciting as some of those guys were. He's as exciting as them now because now you know you're watching the continuation of a genuinely great career.
Yeah, and that's what I enjoyed so much about tonight was I just felt like I was watching an all-time great just do his thing against a very credible opponent. That's plenty for me.
I mean, 2 losses. And both of them to not good boxers, great boxers, all right? Floyd Mayweather and Dimitri Bivol. What does that mean? It means no Mexican fighter has beaten him. No Mexican-American fighter has beaten him. That's what matters most to his audience.
Yeah, there's a distinction there. You know, Chavez lost to Oscar, a Mexican-American. Barrera lost to Morales and Marquez. Morales lost to Barrera. Is that the only Mexican Morales lost to? I think so. Help me out, chat. But yeah,
can deal with. A great Russian technician beat him, and you know the ultimate sort of knockout.
I don't know if Marquez lost to any Mexican fighters either.
Proof stylist beat him. We get that. They want to see him go.
Amanda says Canelo's not exciting. He's exciting, but he hasn't been in as great of fights as Barrera, Morales, and Marquez were. Like, the second Golovkin fight was exciting. The fact that he hits so hard in these higher weight divisions is exciting, but you're right. Like, Canelo throws like 40 punches around. Morales, Barrera, and Marquez were in some of the greatest fights of all time. So I hear what you're saying, Amanda, for sure. And Salvador was against Danny Little Red Lopez, Wilfredo Gomez. Those are all-time classics. The second Golovkin fight, you could argue, is an all-time classic. I think it was a borderline, like it was a great fight, but there was no knockdowns. Neither guy was ever even in danger of being knocked down. There's a lot of hard shots landed. That's probably his most entertaining fight, and as good of as even though it was a great fight, it does pale in comparison to Morales Barrera or Morales versus Pacquiao or Marquez versus Pacquiao. So yeah, I hear you, Amanda.
Go in and fight against other guys who are going to come at him the way Munguia came at him tonight and wind up besting them with his chin and his counterpunching capability. This was classic Canelo. Everything that makes him great was visible in the ring tonight. I love Munguia. He gave it everything. I said on PPV.com, Munguia was brave, Munguia was beautiful, the crowd loved him, and he was another Canelo victim.
I'll leave you with this, Jim. You know, Larry, he would say, gun to my head, and then he'd make his pick, right? So in the words of Larry Merchant, gun to your head, Canelo or Benavidez.
Wow. Wow.
Let's bars, Jim.
See the circumstances of how the fight is made, where it's going to take place, all that kind of stuff. I don't want to make a pick right now. I'm the world's biggest David Benavidez admirer, but I'm also the world's...
That's not true, Jim. I beat you to the punch. I'm the biggest David Benavidez admirer.
Biggest Canelo Alvarez admirer. So let's just say this. They are two tremendously talented fighters.
Yep.
One of them may be reaching his peak right now. The other one is probably a tiny bit beyond his peak, but not far enough beyond his peak that you could honestly say he slipped. He was great tonight. He had to be great tonight to put distance between himself and a hungry, skilled, good young fighter who tried as hard as he could, but he beat him. And he proved once again that in circumstances where people are trying to find a way to pick against him, he wins. And he wins because, again, you can't knock him down. You can't ruffle him. You can't disturb that calm, methodical, go-forward demeanor that he has and that he's always had.
Yeah, his composure was crazy tonight, yeah. But thank you so much, Jim. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Jim.
My privilege.
Yeah. That Jim Lampley guy, he's pretty good at commentating, I think. It's like he's done this before. So, let me get to my opinion now on the Benavidez stuff. I think Benavidez would have been too much for Canelo tonight. I said weeks ago, if they were fighting tonight, May 4th, then Benavidez would have won, in my opinion. And I still believe that. Here's the problem for David. His next fight is at 175. He's been killing himself to make 68. He told me in an interview we did a week or two ago that he's been wanting to go up to 175 for years, but he stayed at 68 for the money fights, and that's what he did. Well, I think another reason why I think that Canelo's going to take the Benavidez fight is I think having Benavidez go to 75 and then having to suck back down to 68 may give this aging great champion the edge he's looking for to beat this younger, bigger Mexican monster, David Benavidez. And yeah, I think he'll take it next. And it gets dicier for David. I interviewed David about it. Didn't love seeing, not that I give a shit if he gets drunk and has a good time. That's his life. He's a grown man. Enjoy your life. But when you got a big fight coming up, and the Canelo fight always is looming around the corner right now, that's not good. And that's why David was man enough to apologize about it to his supporters. But going up to 75 and then back down to 68, it complicates things. It just does. David, in a number of fights, whether it was Romer, Alexis Angulo, that might have been the fight where he lost the title on the scales or whatever, but he gets very thin in certain fights at 68. Not in the Andrade fight. Looked really strong in the Andrade fight. But, yeah, that complicates things, man. And it does give Canelo a little bit of an extra edge that he may need to pull it off against the 6'2", big, fast, strong, hungry David Benavidez. But tonight, I definitely think David would have been too much for him. If David can be himself, getting back down to 68 after the Gvozdyk fight, then I still think he could beat Canelo because Canelo's struggles with pace, and David has a much better jab than Jaime Munguia. Once Canelo picked up the jab, Munguia can now jab him. David has a great jab. It just hasn't looked like it as much because he has slow feet, and he's been fighting boxers, guys who are back foot masters like Caleb Plant and Demetrius Andrade. And so when he has to reach with his shots in the center of the ring because his feet get picked up slowly and he's reaching for punches, he don't look as hot. But I'm telling you, against a guy like Canelo, I know Canelo moved early against Munguia, but that quickly faded. And ultimately, Canelo's going to fight in the center of the ring and take little half steps out and half steps back in, half steps out and half. He's not going to do what he did in the first Golovkin fight in 2017 and circle you anymore. At least I don't think so. And Canelo being in front of David's got a great jab, and with a guy who's more in front of him in the pocket, David's going to be able to get that off, and he's going to give Canelo issues with the distance because Floyd Mayweather once said, when I was in the gym watching Tank, and actually Tank shouted me out today. That made my night. But Floyd Mayweather said in the gym, he was talking about, like, Canelo's got this great defense. This was off the record, but Floyd wouldn't give a shit if I shared it, I'm pretty sure. He was saying, Canelo's got this great defense, but for all his head movement, quote, that motherfucker can't get out of the way of a jab. Which I think was an overstatement. Look at the Caleb Plant fight. Caleb Plant has a really good jab, and Canelo parried it beautifully coming in, got him on the ropes, two-piece to the body, and then eventually finished him out off top later in the fight. But so that's an overstatement. But what Floyd's point does ring true is you got to have a really good jab to have a chance of beating Canelo, and David does. And he's got power and combinations and speed behind it. And you saw Canelo, again, likes his pace. And this isn't Jaime Munguia who will be in front of him. This is a big guy, a puncher. Jaime started at 54. David's really a 75, sucking down to 68 when he fights there. And he's faster than Jaime Munguia. He has better reflexes on the fast twitch stuff than Jaime Munguia. It's just a different animal. completely. And yeah, I still would favor Benavidez, but can't count out Canelo because his placement is insane. He's more accurate than David. He may even punch for punch hit a little harder than David, even though David's a great puncher. But David isn't a great puncher when he's putting together a lot of his quick combinations. David hits hard with both hands, but he gets the most power out of his left hook and left hand really sitting on it. But when he does the quick, they're not coming. Not every shot is coming out as hard as when he sits down on the left hook. Canelo sits down on everything, and that's part of why his punch output is so economical. Is he's he's not like a Lomachenko or a Crawford who touch sometimes. Lomachenko does that more. Crawford will take a little something off and then finish up hard. Canelo throws basically everything hard, and he moves his head constantly, which will tire you out too. So he's throwing bombs. He's committing. He's putting damn near knockout on every punch. And he's constantly flexing his waist, as Eddie Reynoso says. So it stands to reason why he doesn't fight that high of a pace usually. But I just think, man, Benavidez with the youth, the jab, the combinations, the pace. If Canelo can't knock him out, Benavidez is going to win that fight, I think. But again, the weight, it complicates things a little bit. But I do think David would have been a bit too much for Canelo tonight. Let me see a couple super chats real quick. My man Quesadilla Monte, who's always supporting me, thank you, Quesadilla, says, if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's probably Canelo Alvarez. Sheesh, harsh. Throwing heat at El Gran Campeón de Guadalajara. Look, man, I gotta see it to believe it. I gotta see this man Canelo fully go through with the duck to believe it's truly gonna happen once and for all. Because let me fix this a little bit. That just made it worse, maybe, but whatever. I gotta see it to believe it because I just don't think he's a great champion, a true champion. He may have popped for some stuff back in the day, but who knows? A lot of these great fighters have been on shit. Caught, not caught, whatever. But yeah, I think he's a true champion. And so I got to see him follow through with this duck once and for all. And if he does, then it's a duck. Like you said, Quesadilla Monte, it's a duck. It's a Canelo Alvarez. But I'd like to believe that ultimately that won't be what happens. Ready to rumble again. Alan Maddox, thank you again for the super chat, says, Jim Lampley survived GGG. Shaking my head. G got robbed in the first fight. And I had Nello losing the second fight, but it could have gone either way or draw. I also think Lara beat Canelo. I originally thought if anyone... I was at that fight, Lara versus Canelo. I originally thought that if anyone won, it was Lara, but I think I scored it 114. And then some years ago, like 2 years ago or a year ago, I rewatched Lara Canelo, and I actually felt like Canelo won the fight. He was hurting Lara to the body. Like I had Lara up 3-0. Like Lara was definitely up 3-0. I think ultimately my opinion on that fight was when push came to shove and it was time to cement a victory for Lara, throw that, because he was hitting Canelo with the left hand at will early, the straight left hand behind usually the 1-2. And I said when it was time to throw an extra 1-2, another 1-2 to seal this victory against this big A side, he instead opted to evade and sidestep and move a little bit too much and be unrealistic about they're not going to let you win a fight like this. You're going to have to beat Canelo, with no doubt. And again, I had Lara up 3-0, but Canelo began to hurt him to the body. He cut him with the uppercut, buzzed him with an uppercut. And then once Lara started to not like those body shots, he just didn't engage as much. And my most recent viewing of the fight, I actually thought Canelo won after years of scoring at 114 and feeling like if anyone edged it out, it was Lara. And then also G got robbed in the first fight and Canelo lost the second. I think it could have been a draw in the second fight. I think in the first fight, Triple G did no worse than a draw. When I covered that fight live, I scored it 116, 112 Golovkin. Then I went back and watched it on tape, and I noticed that Golovkin really couldn't land anything outside the jab. He was too slow. Anything outside of the jab, again, like Floyd said, that jab is the key. Golovkin had his success with his jab. He landed a right uppercut late in the second fight that buzzed Canelo, but again, for the most part, Golovkin in his mid-30s was just too slow to consistently land any power on Canelo. He was just jabbing his head off a lot of times. But Canelo landed some big shots in the center of the ring. It's just he fought in spurts that fight and was on his bike way too much. So I thought Triple G did no worse than a draw in the first fight, and if anyone won, it was Golovkin. Although on television, I could see the draw. I could see why it wound up a draw. And then in the rematch, I thought Canelo won 115-113, but I did think it was possible you could have had a 114-114, but I thought Canelo won the fight. But thank you for the super chat. Let me see. Let's see. Man, Canelo's always the underdog. Canelo's always the underdog to you casuals. No, he's not. I picked him to beat Golovkin. I picked him to beat Bivol. He let me down. The only fight I've ever picked against Canelo was Floyd Mayweather. Every other fight I picked him to win. I picked him to beat Golovkin the first time when everybody was, picking Golovkin. So, yeah, I don't know. But enjoy yourself. So, Boxing Magic Mexican says Canelo comes out of a dominant performance versus a prime undefeated fighter, but yet somehow Benavidez gets some credit and Canelo ain't shit. Wow, casual. Who said Canelo's not shit? I believe I've said like 18 times that he's great and I love this about what he did tonight and I thoroughly enjoyed the performance. Man, calm down. Ready to Rumble, a.k.a. Alan Maddox. Do you think Marquez won more than one fight versus Pacquiao? May have been. Man, I'd have to literally, as a 32-year-old, go back and score because I watched those fights so many times in my teens, in my 20s, and would score them differently upon different viewings. You know what I mean? I felt like it was tough for Marquez to overcome the knockdowns in the first two fights. And I remember live watching the third fight at home on pay-per-view, I felt like Marquez won that. But part of why I thought he won that is I thought he was going to get killed by Pacquiao in the third fight. I thought Pacquiao as a welterweight, not fighting Marquez at 130 or 126, I thought he was going to be too much for Marquez, that he had ascended too much in that division, and Marquez had not in that division. But yeah, it's very conceivable that Marquez deserved more than one win versus Pacquiao. But I do think, like myself personally, I was a little affected by the expectations heading into the third fight. And then in the first two fights, Pacquiao put him down a combined 4 times out of the first two fights, and they were both really close. But it was a little hard to overcome that in the end. And then the first fight actually should have been a win for Pacquiao, but one judge scored what was supposed to be a 10-6 round, 10-7. You guys remember that? And then, but it doesn't matter because the way if Marquez would have, my man Radio Raheem, you guys probably know him from the interviews. I watched the fight with him live at the MGM that night. It's still the greatest fight I've ever watched in my life live. Number 2 would be Fury and Wilder's third fight. But the greatest fight I ever watched in my life live was Marquez Pacquiao 4. And it was crazy. It was like the Mexican fans, they sang the entirety of El Rey for the ring walk for Marquez. They sang the entire, they were roaring the anthem, roaring El Rey, every lyric. And then they just knew. It was like Marquez Pacquiao 4 was like some Roman Coliseum shit. It didn't feel like I was at a boxing match. It felt like I was at the Roman Coliseum with 2 gladiators and the crowd was roaring, not cheering, not loud, not pumped or hyped, but roaring for blood. The Mexican fans that night were like, we're not leaving this fucking arena without Pacquiao's head on a fucking, what is it, swivel? I don't know, a head on a stick. And Marquez delivered it for them. If Marquez would have just retired, my man Raheem said, he should crowd surf all the way back to Mexico City and never fight again. If Marquez would have retired right after knocking out Pacquiao, there'd be a lot of people saying he's the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, but he stuck around. He lost to Bradley the next fight, and he beat Mike Alvarado and called it a day. But if he would have just left on that win, that would have been amazing. Yeah. Canelo going to beat Benavidez, then y'all are going to say he's ducking Tank. No, if he beats Benavidez, he's probably the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, and that'll be the equivalent to what Floyd did to him. You know, it'll beat the young guy that everybody wanted to see. Speaking of Tank, though, your boy did have an awesome moment happen. So Frank Martin and Gervonta Davis announced their fight this morning. Well, not announced it, but they had their first official presser. And Gervonta, I was there when they sparred in 2020 during the pandemic. I interviewed Frank right after it on Fight Hype, and I saw the sparring. So there's been a lot made about the sparring. I was there, so I know what happens. I know what happened. And, Gervonta and Frank both gave me like a fun, hard time about it. But I told both of them, like, I can't speak on it unless both of you say it's okay, because the rules, the old school code in boxing is what happens in the gym stays in the gym. So I'm not about to tell everyone what happened unless you guys are okay with it, because loose lips sink ships. Seeing a champion spar is sacred grounds. It's a privilege. And if you're out here blabbing about what happened and giving their opponents some insight, then you're not going to be trusted to be loud in a gym to watch a champion spar. So I wouldn't divulge that. And Tank, who sometimes seems like he doesn't like anybody, it's him versus everybody. He said, you do stay solid for the most part. That I know. He did clause it a little bit. Stay like that. A lot of people are not like that. Salute. That made my night. That Tank gave me some love like that. Let's watch real quick what they both said.
I thought you meant about the sparring. Like you're going back to the sparring and saying
you probably was there.
I was.
Okay.
I can't speak on it.
Tank, of all the fighters you could have fought, what made you choose Frank Martin?
Yeah, young lion. You know what I mean?
Tank, how does it?
You on this side, you easy to make.
How does it feel to be the face of boxing?
Good.
It's kind of funny.
You was there.
I was.
You was there.
I was.
No,
You was there, so
you was there. You was there.
I gotta have a blessing for both fighters. What happens in the gym stays.
You was there. What happened?
I was.
Yeah, you was there when you put it out there.
I would love to.
Is Tank capping or what? You was there when he was sparring. Tank, is he capping or what?
Isn't the rules of the game that what happens in the gym stays? I would love to. I would love to say that.
I mean, I get it, but you think about it. When I did the interview, it was all respect, right? Mm-hmm. And then the interview came out, and it was Cap when he said he heard me. You know what I mean? So it was Cap. So I'm like, damn, like that's crazy. Like I ain't even mention nothing, and then the motherfucker come out and say they heard me. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. You don't need to speak on sparring though. You don't speak on it, and then sparring is sparring. At the end of the day, that ain't the fight. Right. At the end of the day, but motherfuckers know what did happen in there.
Well, Leonard, I do. Leonard
was there.
That was fun. That was a cool moment. So what happened then? Again, I really want, they should bring me in for the promotion and let me say what happened, because I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. Fair to both men. But, I can't go against the code. I want to see sparring still between world champions. So I'm not trying to get kicked out of gyms. So yeah. I have a feeling they're going to give me a chance before the fight to speak on it. I hope. So yeah. But guys, it's really all I had. It's 1:40 in the morning out here. I'm ready to eat this unhealthy other Shake Shack burger. Shout out to Shake Shack. It's not that the burger's unhealthy. It's that eating 2 or 3 of them in a day when you haven't worked out all week because you're working is probably not good for you. But I have this burger to tend to, and let me shout out again, Amanda. Love you, Amanda. Love Hunter. Life and Logic. Thanks for being in the live. J-Dog, Johnny, Omar. Sean's charging $200 million for the sparring story. Yeah, I'm pricing myself out of the sparring story, like Canelo might be pricing himself out of Benavidez. But you say Canelo's showing his age. Give some examples of Canelo showing his age. He was always fought at a patient, slow pace and in spurts and gassed out early. I believe Canelo's in his prime, as he says. He's basically in his prime. But let's not forget, he was able to summon 600 punches, 622 punches in the rematch with Golovkin. And you make a lot of fair points. He basically did still look in his prime. He got hit more tonight. Got hit, and Munguia, but Munguia is a good offensive fighter. You could argue that Munguia is a better offensive fighter than Callum or Plant or Saunders or any of those guys. You raise a fair point. You raise a very fair point. But I'm just everything, just a tinge, man, just a tinge. Nothing crazy. I'm not saying he's past it. I still think he's one of the best, pound for pound. His skill set is sublime. You know. He did some beautiful things tonight, but I think he's getting. Look at the John Ryder fight. The John Ryder fight, he had to show up at the presser with a bloody nose. He's fought way better fighters than John Ryder, and they couldn't leave a scratch on him at times. He's getting hit a little bit more. The stamina issues have always been a thing for Canelo, but I felt like during that undisputed run at 68, when he grabbed those 4 belts in 12 months, I felt like from the Golovkin rematch all the way up until winning the Plant fight, that his stamina got better. That he still, isn't going to throw 50, 60 punches around, but it got better. And then against Bivol, he was tired by 7th and 8th round. Against Golovkin, I felt like the Canelo that was firing on all cylinders when he grabbed 4 belts in 12 months would have stopped Golovkin in the 3rd fight, but he didn't. I feel like that guy would have stopped John Ryder, but he didn't. And I'll say this, for Charlo and Munguia, he does look better than he did against Ryder and Bivol in the 3rd Golovkin fight. So if this is the 4 belts in 12 months Canelo from 2020 to 2021, and this is the guy who looked like he was slowing down against Ryder, Bivol in the 3rd Golovkin fight, he's a little bit somewhere in the middle, leaning more towards, how good he looked then. So I think, he's still like if he was a 10 at his peak, he's still a 9. He's still pretty damn close to the peak of his powers. And again, I think Charlo and Munguia were really strong performances that were stronger than the 3 fights before that. But I still feel like the peak was that super middleweight run from Callum Smith to Caleb Plant, and even the Rocky Felding fight. Even though who's Rocky Felding, but he looked amazing in that fight, in his first fight at 68. Kovalev, he's just too heavy at 75. He knocked him out, but he didn't look as impressive in that fight as he did at the fights at 68. So that's my take. But you raised a very fair point. So yeah. Canelo looks for more pop shots now, says my man, the great Malcolm X Box. What's up, Malcolm X? Thanks for joining me late night, brother. Alan CV says his best version was at 160. He carries too much weight now. I actually think, no, I thought 160 would be his best. I didn't think he would be what the force he is at 68, because I'm like, he's 5'8". Like 160 is going to be his best weight class. 68 and 75, But no, I think Canelo's best weight is 68. When it's all said and done. So, but that's just me. But yeah, guys, I want to shout out to Gleaming TV, Boxing Magic, Mexicide, J-Dog, Mark T, Eric Bell, Johnny, and everybody. Of course, Amanda and Hunter, Lawns, Yamali Siberian, Mr. Rocket, everybody have a great rest of the night. God bless you all. I got Sean's show tomorrow. Got some interviews that'll still be dropping tomorrow. And everyone just, have a great night. It was a really good fight, really good performance. I really enjoyed it. I really had fun this week. Thank you guys all week for the support on the channel. And a lot of work to do ahead of us, ahead of me. I'm not going to shove it on you guys. It's on me. But a lot of work ahead of me this year to get this channel going the right direction. And thanks to you guys, it is going the right direction. It's done better than I thought it was going to do in the first month. But Canelo isn't going to be fighting every weekend, and Ryan Garcia and David Haney aren't going to be fighting every weekend. So hard work is in front of me, but nothing worth having in life comes easy. So God bless all of you. Shout out to Canelo. It's always hard because these webcams are backwards on the live. Shout out to Canelo. He's right there. Right there. Right Right there. I found him. There he is. Everyone, God bless. Enjoy.